Hello and welcome to Frontrunner Motorsport, and I have just watched the Monaco Grand Prix. It's literally just finished and I'm doing this straight away for a change, not 10 hours after. Not a lot to get through today. It was a race of few incidents and this will probably be quite a short video, but it's a good time to subscribe because we are hurtling towards 400 subscribers. So sit back, relax, and let's begin. So, Monaco gets away with a lot because it's a very historic track. It's been part of the calendar forever. It means the racing doesn't necessarily have to be amazing because it's Monaco. It's a hugely important event on the Formula 1 calendar. It's almost the most important race of the year in many respects. But this was not a good race. This was atrocious. Again, apart from Mick Schumacher overtaking Mazepin on the first lap and maybe a few overtakes at the start and during the pit stops, was there any overtaking? I can't recall any. And so it's really down to the one or two things that happened that any places changed whatsoever. It was a good win for Verstappen. He pretty much controlled the race the whole way through. Really gives him a shot in the arm for the championship. I'm sure it's good for his confidence as well. And really, it couldn't have gone much better for Red Bull. I think honestly, apart from Perez being second and one of them getting fastest lap, that's it. So this was almost as good as it gets. Now, I think the biggest incident to talk about, the biggest thing that happened was Charles Leclerc, who got pole position and crashed in quali and therefore did not start the race because his car was too damaged. A huge shame because Ferrari really looked on the pace this weekend and they could have been a threat, and it would have been lovely to see them both back up there. As it is, Leclerc didn't start, but Sainz had a fantastic race, his first podium for Ferrari. He did a fantastic job. This track seems to suit Ferrari because I guess it's not necessarily a power track. Does seem like they have a good chassis, so if Ferrari could have a big engine upgrade by the end of the year, then maybe we could see Ferrari as the third best team again. I think we'll go back to normal racetracks and they'll start to struggle again and be more in the midfield, but Leclerc and Sainz are two very good drivers and Ferrari are a team that don't suffer for long. I'm sure we'll see them back up there again. I can imagine more podiums for both drivers this year. I do feel sorry for Charles Leclerc because obviously it's his home race as well. It'd been nice to see him do well, and he clearly had the pace in the car, but didn't work out. Other than that, it was mostly follow the leader for the whole race until the pit stops. That's when we lost Valtteri Bottas. He does seem to get the worst luck. When Mercedes have issues, and they had issues, it does seem to be Bottas that gets the worst of it. And this was a strange one. A threaded wheel nut, or they threaded the axle, or some machined the axle. That's a strange one. I don't think I've seen that for a long time. It's a huge shame because he was second. Probably as good as his year's going to get. Probably his last year in a front-running car, but no Bottas by the finish, so we lost. Well, he was the only car that actually retired from the race because Leclerc didn't start, so huge shame for Bottas. But Mercedes weren't really on the pace all weekend. We saw them struggling in qualifying. Hamilton had a very bad weekend, scruffy qualifying laps, stuck behind Gasly for the entire race. I mean, he got fastest lap in the end. That's really the high point of his weekend. I don't think it's going to damage his championship hopes too much. I think Mercedes still have the best car. Red Bull have closed the gap. This weekend didn't work out for Mercedes. There'll be other weekends. I think the big thing that comes down to is I think Red Bull have slightly worse reliability. They don't retire too often, but once or twice a year, and you just never see Hamilton not finish a race. As disappointing as this weekend was for him, this is usually as bad as it gets the whole year. And I think Verstappen has been quality all year. He's top 2 for every race so far. That's fantastic. The first time he's led the championship in his career, that's insane. Because a driver of his quality, you really would have thought it would have happened by now. But maybe this is the turning point. Maybe Verstappen can kick on from here. This championship is interesting. It's just the races aren't. It's almost as if Formula 1 has taken that extra step in not being a spectator sport. It's almost more interesting just to check the championship standings every now and again than actually watch the races. Because what happens on track is not a lot. But the championship does have a lot of intrigue going down it. Norris is now 3rd in the championship after getting a podium at Monaco. He's doing a fantastic job. Perez was much better this weekend. Sebastian Vettel did an unbelievable job in an Aston Martin. Finishing 5th. That's probably the best I've seen Sebastian Vettel perform for years. Lance Stroll scored points as well. There's points for Gasly, who is honestly one of the most underrated drivers on the grid. He should not be at AlphaTauri. He really should be at Red Bull, I think. And I know Sergio Perez is a huge deal to sign. He's a great driver. But I think Gasly is a bit wasted in their B team. Ocon scored points. Giovinazzi had a fantastic weekend as well. He got to Q3 and he got a point. So he stayed ahead of teammate Raikkonen as well. Honestly, at this point, Giovinazzi is probably the better of the two. I think Raikkonen does seem to have given up quite a bit. Other than that, there's nothing unsurprising. Ricciardo and Alonso both struggled all weekend, but that has kind of been the case all year. Hasses and Williams were nowhere. Tsunoda struggled, which is a shame. Honestly, Tsunoda really looked like the next big thing at Bahrain, and since then has done nothing. But I'm sure there'll be other opportunities for him to impress. So, I mean, there's not much else to say, really. That's it. Fantastic drive from Verstappen. Red Bull really charging towards Mercedes. It's going to be close all year, I think. If Verstappen can keep this up and finish in the top 2 at every race, he might be champion. That's a big ask, especially with 23 races. We've got 18 left to go. That would have been a championship not that long ago. 18 races is a long time. And it's going to be twists and turns and drama. But it does feel like we're just waiting for it to kick off at the moment. The first 5 races of the year have all been a bit okay-ish. You do have stuff that happens, but they haven't been amazing races. There's not been like a top-class race this year. Maybe Imola. That's as close as we've gotten. But every other race has been kind of it's been a bit naff. But it does feel like we're waiting for something to happen. Some drama is going to happen and kick off this season. And it'll be interesting to keep watching. I hope. But the Monaco Grand Prix was a procession. Driver of the day. It's hard because it's close between Sainz, Norris, and Vettel, and I'll probably give it to Sebastian Vettel just because I would never expect him to be up in 5th this year. But honestly, no one really deserves it. So I think Baku is next. We go to Azerbaijan. I like that track. Hopefully it'll be a more interesting race. Yeah, this race was awful. Thank you for watching. Remember to subscribe and have a good one. Hello and welcome to Frontrunner Motorsport. Now it's a couple of days late, but I have finally watched the Monaco Grand Prix. Unfortunately, my work patterns for the last week or so didn't really fit around watching Formula 1, and so it's actually taken me watching the race in 3 parts, which is not a bad thing because the race was sort of cut up into 3 parts. And it's sort of a little bit too late to be reviewing the race. And so we'll ask the question instead, should the Monaco Grand Prix be saved? Does it deserve a place on the Formula 1 calendar in the future? Because it doesn't have a contract to be run anymore. This could have been the last Monaco Grand Prix. It remains to be seen if the FIA brutally cut the historic race from the calendar
But given their expansion in other countries and their desperation to break into America, it's clear that for them, other races take precedence over this really unique race. And Monaco doesn't pay anything. And normally, to have a Grand Prix somewhere, like Silverstone will pay money to have the Grand Prix there. Monaco doesn't do that. It has special status. But it does mean the FIA doesn't make money out of it. Or at least not from that, which is probably a lot of money. But if the alternative is having races like Miami, which, let's not forget, was god-awful. That track is horrendous. I'm not saying they shouldn't have a Grand Prix in Miami, but if they do it again, changes definitely need to be made. But it's still sad to sacrifice the Monaco Grand Prix when really there's nothing like it. Now, it does have issues. There's no doubt that the cars of the 1950s suited Monaco better than the cars of 2022. The cars are wider, it's a very, very narrow track, and overtaking is very, very difficult. In fact, the only really overtakes we saw during this whole Grand Prix were cars on different tyres at the start. There was not a lot of overtaking in the second half of the race after the restart. And that is a problem. Especially when, as we saw with Alonso blocking Hamilton and very quickly dropping 30 to 40 seconds behind the leaders, if you can't get the faster cars ahead of the slower cars, you don't really get much of a race. It was interesting seeing the four leaders right at the end of the race, all within a second of each other. But it doesn't really mean anything if they can't overtake each other. And Perez, struggling on tyres even, was able to hold off the charging Ferraris and his teammate. Which makes for an interesting championship, and I'm very happy for Perez to win a race like this. It's only his third Grand Prix win, and adding Monaco to his wins at Azerbaijan and Bahrain or Sakir, this is definitely the most special track to be winning at for Perez. But the race itself, it was a bit of an odd one, and it was very, very interesting. And it's come with a lot of controversies as well. First, the delayed start. Should the race have been delayed, or should they have been running in the rain? I would like to see them just go. And maybe with a safety car start. I don't think it's a good idea to have 20 Formula 1 cars heading into the first corner at Monaco in the rain, because you have some drivers there who are capable of causing chaos. And the Monaco Grand Prix will be even less interesting if there's only 10 cars racing after the first corner. That being said, even when it started, it was still damp, and the people who did crash in the early laps behind the safety car, Nicholas Latifi and Lance Stroll, who both happen to be Canadian, which is unfortunate, but they are the drivers you kind of expect to crash. Maybe if Sebastian Vettel spun as well, that would have been the trifecta. But everyone did survive pretty much. I mean, Magnussen broke down at some point. I didn't even notice it had happened until Mick Schumacher crashed, and both Hasses were out of the race. Very, very bad weekend for them, and there are now question marks hanging over whether Mick Schumacher will be in that car in the future. It's a shame. Give him more of a chance. I know he's had 2 big accidents this year, but he's still young and he's still learning. He deserves an opportunity to get points in Formula 1, to definitely see out the season. Beyond that, if it doesn't happen and his performances just aren't up to par, then you have to make a decision. But I think he does deserve another season. So hopefully he gets to see out 2022. And they can decide 2023 at any point in the season. I don't think Haas are going to lose out big time by keeping Mick Schumacher. That being said, I can't really say the same for Nicholas Latifi. He is really I won't even say he's underperforming. He's just not performing at all. He has crashed constantly throughout this year. Williams may be able to do better. I know Nicholas Latifi brings a lot of money to the team. I think he has big sponsors, so I doubt they'd replace him. But out of all the drivers on the grid, I think he, on performance value, he should be the one in risk, and yet Mick Schumacher and Daniel Ricciardo seem to be the ones most likely to be replaced mid-season. This was another bad weekend for Daniel Ricciardo. He just doesn't really seem into it anymore. This isn't the Daniel Ricciardo of old who won at Monaco. Not even that long ago. I think it was 2018, so 4 years ago. Whether it's just that the McLaren doesn't suit him, maybe he just doesn't have the motivation anymore, maybe the team's just not behind him. Whatever it is, it's just not working at McLaren. It'd be sad to see Daniel Ricciardo off the grid, but if he did go, I don't think McLaren would lose out too much. I don't think they'd bring in someone like Colton Herta mid-season. So McLaren would need a part-time driver for the rest of this season. I can't think of many drivers they have who could do that. I mean, you could talk about bringing someone like Stoffel Van Dorn back for the rest of the year. But really, is he going to do any better than Daniel Ricciardo's doing? I think the problem is Lando Norris is performing so well and so consistently. He is really making Daniel Ricciardo look bad. And, you know, to actually get over that, Daniel Ricciardo needs to start performing. I know he got a win at Monza last year, but that was kind of fluky. And, you know, you can kind of argue about that should have gone to Lando Norris. He really deserved it last year. And he is still waiting for his first Formula 1 win. It'd be a shame for Daniel Ricciardo's career to end getting sacked, but relations to the team do seem difficult at the moment, so I think he's the one most in danger of it. Other teammate battles that are interesting are Lewis Hamilton and George Russell, because once again, George Russell was doing... I mean, I want to say he's in a Mercedes and he should be where he is, but considering that the Mercedes is not on the pace of the front-running cars, George Russell's doing a really, really good job. He hasn't finished outside of the top 5 so far this year, so he is showing great consistency. Lewis Hamilton just isn't there, and whether that's the changes just don't suit his driving style, again, maybe his motivation's gone. He's already won 7 world championships, and now the car's off the pace. He really, I bet he's thinking, I should have retired. And every race that goes by is just damaging his legacy, because he is looking extremely average and his teammate is trouncing him. Mercedes did clap back and say that, actually, if you look at the data, once Alonso cleared off a bit, Hamilton was on the pace of Russell. That's not really good enough for the guy who has been built up as the greatest Formula 1 driver ever. It's almost as if, over his career, 90% of the articles that have come out since his career started have been about Lewis Hamilton. Like, if you go on the BBC Sport page, click on Formula 1, 90% of those articles written are about Lewis Hamilton. Because I think especially the British media, I don't know what it's like in the rest of the world, but we have built him up as a titan of the sport and the greatest of all time. And you can't really support that with his 2022 performances, which happens. Like, great drivers have bad seasons. Emerson Fittipaldi, once he left McLaren and joined his brother's team, he was not the same Emerson Fittipaldi. He was not winning races. He was lucky to score points. And he's not the only example. Damon Hill at Arrows. Yes, he won a race at Jordan, but his second season at Jordan was terrible. It happens. And, you can't doubt that he's a 7-time world champion with over 100 wins, and he's broken most of the records. But this isn't a good look for him. And it's going to be interesting to see whether he can bounce back. I did count it. I can't remember how many. I think he's already 3 race wins behind Max Verstappen. So around 75 points. It may be more than that. That is a big gap already. And we're only 7-8 races in. It's a long season. If Mercedes suddenly find a lot of pace and jump right to the front of the queue, he might be able to overturn that. But I think Lewis Hamilton's season is already done, and he's not looking at championship wins. And that's going to be interesting to see what that does to his future, whether he wants to continue beyond 2022. I think maybe the articles once again will start coming out towards the end of the year, maybe suggesting that Lewis Hamilton will retire. Because he got him at the end of last year, but it was obviously due to the controversy. This year, it could be the same thing, but for completely different reasons. And the championship at the front. Ferrari kind of shot themselves in the foot, as Ferrari tend to do. This was a brilliant performance from Perez and Sainz. I think they both had points to prove. Great win for Perez. Sainz, I think he's unlucky not to win his first Formula 1 race. And I think he is doing a good job. He has got 4 podiums and he has had his bad luck. Out of the 4 drivers, he's the one who's lagging behind. But I think a couple of good races, he could bring himself back into championship contention. Sergio Perez is having a brilliant year. He's only 15 points behind Verstappen. He is definitely in championship contention. And that makes it difficult for Red Bull because they shouldn't favour Max Verstappen over him. If Perez is charging for the top, give him a chance to do it. Charles Leclerc will be the most disappointed because firstly he's from Monaco and this was his home Grand Prix. He had disappointments last year where he qualified on pole but then couldn't start the race. This year qualified on pole again and he only finished 4th. Didn't even get on the podium. We know he's definitely capable of better than the last couple of races, so I should imagine at some point we are going to get a Charles Leclerc bounce back, get a couple of wins, but Red Bull have really started to pull away a bit. This Ferrari resurgence, it's only been 2 wins. The rest of the races have been won by Red Bulls. I think that's going to ebb and flow over the season. I think we are going to see more Ferrari wins. Hopefully for Sainz as well as Leclerc. But this is an interesting title race and is definitely the most exciting part of Formula 1 at the moment. I think this Grand Prix was one of the more exciting races we've had this year, but not necessarily because of the Monaco track. It's just a lot went on. The weather, the race stoppages, the tyre situation. It made for an interesting race, but maybe for the wrong reasons. But do I think the Monaco Grand Prix deserves to be in the calendar? Yes, I do, because as I said, there's nothing like it. It is entirely unique. Even among street circuits, it is completely unique. And it's an event every year. And even in this race, they're talking about Olivier Panis winning in '96. That race was crazy. And if you go back and watch that race, so many things happen. But it is kind of an outlier because a lot of Monaco Grand Prix are processions. And there was not a lot of overtaking at this race. There was a lot of following. Cars were close together, which is nice to see. But it's, as I said, it's kind of pointless if they can't overtake each other. I think the track definitely needs to change. And I think that's difficult because there's not a lot of room to change. You can't exactly just make it wider. There's a massive harbour there and, public roads, they're kind of as wide as they are because it's surrounded by buildings. And if you can't change the track and the track isn't exciting anymore, maybe it is time to move on. Monaco will always have its place. There will always be racing there. They have the historics there. Just don't let Charles Leclerc drive around in an old Ferrari. He's not very good at it. But it would be a shame for it to be missing from the calendar. But the calendar is ever expanding. I mean, one day there's going to be 700 races a year. And in every country in the world. And if there isn't a space for Monaco, it is a really big shame. But that's, the price of continuous progress. We've lost more and more of these great old circuits. Like, we don't see the Nürburgring anymore. Or the Hockenheimring even. They're gone from the calendar, Don't think they're coming back anytime soon. Really, the last ones are Monaco, Silverstone, Monza and Spa. I don't like seeing these tracks disappear. If any of them, actually, honestly, Silverstone should probably be the one to go, because it's nothing like what it used to be. Even going back into the early 2000s and the 90s, and it's not the track it once was. I don't like the modern layout of Silverstone. It's nowhere near as memorable as the old layout. Maybe I'm old and it's just nostalgia, but the best British Grand Prix are from years gone by. We haven't had a good one for a while, and part of the reason for that is that the Silverstone track just isn't as interesting as it used to be. Monza and Spa are always good tracks, and they always will be. And if they go from the calendar, I think that would really hurt Formula One. I think you do need at least a few of these really special historic races to go alongside your crazy street circuits in places like Baku, Miami, Hanoi, which we never saw, which is a great shame. I think they should revisit that at some point. And we've had so many tracks like Saudi Arabia and even Bahrain, which has been on the calendar a long time. And we're going to have races in Qatar. All these racetracks in the Middle East look exactly the same. They're not very interesting. The racing's never very good. I know we all talked about Abu Dhabi last year because of the controversy, but was it actually a good race? Not really. And it's going to go down in history that what people are going to talk about forever. The race itself was really boring, and that track sucks. And it always has sucked, and it always will suck. And it's not just in Middle East. We get races in Russia, which are terrible as well. And luckily, for very bad reasons, they're gone from the calendar. But what are they going to replace them with? Just another track in an autodrome that's massively wide, has huge runoff areas, and doesn't make for interesting racing. Whenever we go to France, I forget which track they even use in France anymore. Is it Paul Ricard with the blue squiggly lines everywhere? I hate that track. And even tracks they've been to for a long time, like Barcelona and Hungary, they've sort of become historic because Formula 1 is there so often. We've had a Hungarian Grand Prix since like 1986, but the Hungaroring has never been the most exciting track in the world, and yet it always seems to survive. So someone likes that track. But Monaco, to me, it's still special, and it always will be. So I'll leave it down to you. This is kind of a community vote sort of thing. Do you think the Monaco Grand Prix deserves to be on the calendar? Give your reasons either way down below, and remember to subscribe. I will be talking about the Indy 500, even though it's way too late. Like, the race was ages ago. It's part of history. And I've started watching it and I haven't finished yet, and I don't know the winner. So I will be doing something hopefully along the lines of this. Not necessarily a review, but more I'll find a reason to talk about it. Monaco, it was an interesting race, and it's an interesting track. But maybe it is time to say goodbye to it. So, leave your thoughts down below in the comments. Remember to subscribe. Thank you for watching, and have a good one.
Hello and welcome to Frontrunner Motorsport and the very late review of the Monaco Grand Prix, which unfortunately was delayed, along with all the Indy 500 videos I've done that haven't been uploaded yet because of issues beyond my control. We lost internet for a few days. Very annoying. And then, just as we got the internet back, we had a power cut. And so, the first opportunity I had to do anything was yesterday, but I was out with the kids all day. I know, poor work ethic, but it is half term. So today, we are talking about the Monaco Grand Prix. Just 3 days late, it's not that bad. And it was tedious as all hell, which was sort of to be expected. But last year, we looked at the Monaco Grand Prix and said, could it be saved? Or is it just too outdated to work in modern Formula 1? I'm going to flip that question around now, because we had, just about a month ago, a Formula E race at Monaco that was absolutely fantastic. Lots of overtaking, lots of action, kept you guessing all the way through. It was a 10 out of 10 race compared to what we had on Sunday. So it's Formula 1 that doesn't work. So
how can we change Formula 1 so that it works at Monaco and therefore everywhere else as well? Firstly, the cars are too wide. Make them thinner. You need to get 2 cars alongside each other to overtake. Very difficult at Monaco, so the car's too big. Let's change that. Let's make the car smaller, and then hopefully we can get a few more overtakes just because they have more space to do it. Secondly, as we saw in Formula E, they are less aerodynamically affected, so if they get damaged, they lose a front wing, or even like bits of the side. Like, you see Formula E cars with bits hanging off them all the time and they continue on just fine. We can do that in Formula 1 too. Get rid of the front rings that have like 400 little bits hanging off them and just change it to something simpler that doesn't affect the aerodynamics as much. So less, and I guess by an extension just have less downforce in general. That way, again, should help overtaking. The Monaco track itself is very difficult to change because it's in a very tight space. And you're talking about you'd have to demolish bits of Monaco to change it. Which for, you know, a 3-day event, it's not really worth it. I sort of look at the chicane after the tunnel and think, could something be done there to have a better overtaking spot? Because you have all that runoff behind it. It's a bit wider down there. I'm sure you could do something with that corner. But I know that would be very, very difficult. But I think those 2 things to start with would help Formula 1 at Monaco and therefore the rest of the calendar. There's a few other things as well. Get rid of DRS. It doesn't work. It would actually be better off with a similar system to IndyCar and the push to pass. I think that would work a lot better for Formula 1. More pit stops. I guess you could have Pirelli make tyres worse. I don't know if you really want to know that because I know there's a safety concern with that, but that too might help. Or refueling. Just a reason to have more pit stops and a lot more different strategies. Again, at Monaco, when they're only making 1 pit stop for tyres, doesn't really add a lot of different strategy options. That does take away from the action because everyone can't overtake and they're on the same strategy, so that's it. As for the race itself, as I said, it was pretty dull. There was not a lot of action. The qualifying was a lot better than the race, and when that happens, you know things are bad. But I will say those laps from Max Verstappen, Fernando Alonso, and even Esteban Ocon, they were incredible laps. And it was a very exciting Q3 in qualifying. That lap from Max Verstappen was A grade. He was right on the limit. Like, he was going against the barrier in the last corner. Just snuck in ahead of Fernando Alonso. It was a shame because I think it was 175 races since Fernando Alonso had a pole position. It's still an incredible job for him to get second and finish second. But Max Verstappen is just a level above everyone else right now. It's not just a car, he is incredible. I think Sergio Perez proves it's not just a car. Crash in qualifying, bad race, just couldn't overtake anyone. Being down the back of the grid at Monaco is always a massive handicap. But it just was not a great race for Sergio Perez. And Max, it was pretty much perfect, so you can't really take anything away from him. It was a 10 out of 10 drive in qualifying and a 10 out of 10 drive in the race. And it's been a 10 out of 10 season so far for him, really, because he's had 4 wins, 2 second places. He's well ahead of everyone else. It looks unlikely that anyone's going to catch him, but obviously we don't know that for sure. Red Bull could have some reliability issues, or he could just have a run of bad races. Things could change, but I think has to be a massive favourite Max Verstappen this year. As for everyone else, it wasn't that interesting a race, but Fernando Alonso in second did another fantastic job. Ferrari shot themselves in the foot multiple times again. I'm starting to think it wasn't Binotto. They shouldn't have sacked him. That's clearly not the problem. There is just something deeply wrong at Ferrari. And just this year especially, they have really, really hurt themselves. And Leclerc and Sainz aren't really even driving as well as they have in the past. They're 2 steady hands. They should be doing at least scoring points every race whilst not making mistakes, and yet every race they do seem to make a mistake or two, and it's not what I expect from them. But maybe confidence is low, maybe the car's a bit unpredictable. There's just something wrong at Ferrari, and it's deeply concerning. And I know Lewis Hamilton has been linked to Ferrari, and we'll discuss that in a video later in the week because I've got a lot more to say about it. But But this race highlighted a lot of concerns for Ferrari. As for Mercedes, their new upgrade really wasn't as special as we were led to believe. We probably wouldn't see the best of it at Monaco anyway, so we'll have to see in Spain this weekend. But it was a really average race from Mercedes. Russell made contact with Perez. Quite a lot of contact. I'm surprised both cars made it round afterwards, but it was still bad move. But in general, the Mercedes just look average. Esteban Ocon brought the Alpine home in third. Fantastic performance. Every time I think Esteban Ocon is a bit meh, he comes out with a performance and it's like, actually, this guy is pretty good. Same goes for Pierre Gasly, really, and he scored points as well, and it was a decent performance for him. A great weekend for Alpine, really. Beyond that, McLaren scored points, but lower end of the field, and they were pretty quiet all race. Don't like the livery. Having, like, the IndyCar liveries were better than the mashup livery they got at Monaco, so that's one thing to be disappointed by. But they did both score points, and it was a pretty safe race for them. Tsunoda drove fantastically and was very unlucky to have brake issues. Ruined his race. He really deserved points, and he again did a fantastic job in qualifying. So I was very disappointed to see him not score. Whilst Nick de Vries had a decent enough race, I think it will boost his confidence at least. He finished the race. He had a fairly decent qualifying session for him. AlphaTauri looked like they have improved, and hopefully they can carry that on into Spain, and we'll see a genuine performance from them. Hopefully Nick de Vries will score some points very, very soon. As for everyone else, there isn't really a lot to say about the rest of the field. Alfa Romeo really look off the pace. Williams don't really seem to have any pace, although I don't think this track really suits their car at all anyway. Haas had issues and they weren't great. Lance Stroll had the most Lance Stroll performance this year. Tried to go around the outside on the first lap and got crushed against the wall. Stupid move, shouldn't have done it. His fault. He made a couple of more errors during the race as well. He's been driving well this year, but this was definitely a return to Lance Stroll form. Lance Stroll form? No, Lance Stroll form. I think that's pretty much it, really. As I said, this race was not amazing, but honestly, I watched the Formula 3 and the Formula 2 as well, and those races, they had incidents, but they weren't incredible races either. And as I said, we had Formula E here. We know you can have a good race at Monaco now, and Formula 1 needs to react. It needs to make changes. It needs to just go with the times and find a way to make Monaco work for it. It's just not doing that right now. And I haven't watched IndyCar yet, the Indy 500. I've managed to stay away from spoilers, and I'm going to watch it right now, so I'm going to upload this, watch Indy 500 whilst it's uploading. And then I'll probably be back later to talk about it, because I mean, I love IndyCar right now, and it's something I really wanted to talk about, and this weekend kind of just got screwed up beyond belief. So subscribe, because that'll be coming, and you'll have that to look forward to. We have the Spanish Grand Prix this weekend, so hopefully I'll be able to do that on Sunday and not Wednesday. And I've got other motorsport things I want to talk about this week. I've got a load of Indy 500 stuff that I finished, that I didn't get to upload. I might just dump that on you this week as well. And I have other video ideas to come out over the next couple of weeks. Definitely subscribe. Thank you to everyone who has. Thank you for watching, and have a good one. Hello and welcome to Frontrunner Motorsport. And today, of course, today was a really big day for motorsport in 2024, because we have the Monaco Grand Prix and the Indy 500, as well as Formula E, British Touring Cars, Formula Regional European, DTM, Euro Formula, God knows what else. There's a lot of racing this weekend. And so we start the festivities with the Monaco Grand Prix, and it was kind of a sad one to watch, because clearly one of the big things on the agenda, or on the minds of a lot of people in Formula 1, is getting rid of Monaco. I know a lot of people have said they need to make changes to the track. They really can't. There is not enough space to make any kind of big changes to the Monaco track. It is surrounded on all sides by buildings. You aren't going to be able to extend it any. It really is kind of stuck as it is. It's a shame that they talk about changing the track and not changing the cars, which I think are the problem, because we saw in Formula 3, you can overtake at Monaco. And I think it helps that those cars aren't quite as wide as a Formula 1 car. There's the issue, make the cars less wide. This was a track designed for cars in the 1920s, which were obviously a lot narrower. Cars are a lot wider now, and yes, Monaco's probably not up to modern standards. It does not create great racing, especially for Formula 1, although as we've seen from Formula E, you can have good races here. So it's not an issue of the track. The track is fine. We had the Historics racing around here a couple of weeks ago. It was a fantastic weekend. It was very exciting to see those cars out there. So the issue is the cars. There's something wrong with the design of Formula 1 cars. They're probably designed to be exceptionally quick and almost perfect on a wide modern circuit in the Middle East. Not in any way designed to be entertaining to watch. That might be a big problem Formula 1 really wants to look at. It might not be Monaco that's the issue. You may have made a slight design flaw in terms of just not being able to create exciting racing anymore. Although this one did start out messy with obviously Perez having a massive crash with Magnussen and Hülkenberg. I'm glad he's okay. It's been a bad weekend for Sergio Perez. I keep talking about him being replaced. I can still see it happening at some point. And the race incident was not his fault, but the fact that he was there due to a poor qualifying performance definitely was. I think things are starting to stack up against Sergio Perez. Magnussen as well. This was not a good look for him considering he had a really bad weekend a few weeks ago and he has a whole ton of penalty points. It was his fault. I'm surprised. He's probably going to get away with it by the sounds of it. So he's very lucky, but he must be walking on a tightrope. And honestly, if he gets banned for a race and Oliver Behrman comes in, that could be Kevin Magnussen signing his own death warrant. Because if Ollie Behrman does well in the Haas, I don't think they'll think twice about replacing Magnussen, who has not been performing very well. And also on the first lap we had Ocon making contact with Gasly after a bit of a dodgy move, which he got chewed out for. And again, Ocon is probably one of those drivers in a dangerous position where it's not a big loss for Alpine to replace him. And Alpine have a lot of very good junior drivers, Jack Doohan being one of them. You also have the likes of Gabriel Mini in Formula 3. Victor Martins, although he's not having a great year, he is still a good driver. If they chose, I don't think it'd be a great idea to replace him right now, but it's not out of the question. Ocon needs to be careful, and making mistakes like that, definitely not on the cards. After that, the race was pretty dull because you just can't overtake. There was no real overtakes for a long portion of this race. The front four stayed the front four for the entire race due to the fact they changed tyres on the red flag. In fact, I'm not sure any of the top 10 changed at any time, which is pretty bad. Maybe it is time to get Monaco off the calendar, because if this is the direction we're going, we've got more tracks in the Middle East to add on. We're going to have a calendar full of like 30 races at some point, and Monaco's not going to have a place on it because it's old-fashioned and Formula 1 just doesn't really work there now. Hopefully they would keep the Monaco track alive, at least for the historic weekend, and have Formula E race there, maybe some of the junior formulas, bring back the Monaco Junior Cup, whatever it was called. It needs to survive because I think as a historic monument to motorsport, it's one of the most fantastic tracks out there. I honestly would hate to see it go from the calendar, but I can understand why. I just hate what it's being replaced with, what all the great European tracks are being replaced with. There will be a time when Formula 1 won't go to places like Spa or Silverstone or Monza, because those tracks will just become old-fashioned, old world, and that's not what Formula 1 wants. It wants 10 races in America, it wants a whole bunch in the Middle East, it wants probably as soon as it can to have another Russian Grand Prix. It wants the big money Grand Prix, the countries willing to pay to have these Grand Prix. Usually on really boring racetracks. Qatar, Saudi Arabia, Yas Marinas, Bahrain, Sochi at Russia was always a boring race, usually, unless Daniel Kvyat was racing. These big money tracks, massive stadiums with wide tracks, loads of runoff, they tend to be really dull. Has there ever been a really great Bahrain Grand Prix? Will we ever see a really good race in Qatar? Is Yas Marinas anything other than incredibly tedious to drive around? Or to watch people drive around? I don't know what it's like to drive around. I'm sure it's very nice. It's probably very smooth and you have lots of places to go off. But to watch, it's dull as dishwater, being polite. It irks me. I honestly think the calendar is moving in the wrong direction. I'm not saying you have to have 100 races at just European circuits, but the fact you don't have a French Grand Prix or a German Grand Prix, these are two incredibly historic countries for motorsport, and it's just not financially viable to race there, or if it is, then it's just even more profitable to race in places like Saudi Arabia and Qatar. That is cynical. It's a really disappointing way to look at Formula One right now, but it has become about more than just money. It's a whole load of money, big numbers, probably 7-8 digit numbers. As for the race itself, as I said, not a lot happened. Charles Leclerc taking his first Monaco win in his home principality. Very happy for him. It's his first win since Austria in 2022, so he's had a very long wait. It's almost as long as Lewis Hamilton's. So it's good that he's finally turned that around, and it leaves championship open a little bit. It's not all going Verstappen's way. He was sixth in this race. He looked off the pace. Red Bull definitely struggled here. Leclerc has finished in the top 4 at every race this year. He is in fantastic form. Going to be difficult to keep that up for a whole year, but he is doing very, very well. Sainz isn't doing half bad either. Norris obviously doing a fantastic job at the moment. They're not a million miles behind Verstappen. If the rest of this year does not go Verstappen's way, or he has a few more instances of bad luck, we could have a championship fight on our hands. I think Verstappen is obviously still the favourite, but I wouldn't count Leclerc and Norris out completely. As for other drivers, I won't go through everyone in this race because it's kind of pointless. Tsunoda was fantastic. Again, another points finish in the RB. Miles off the front teams, but that's nothing to be ashamed of. Aston Martin, nowhere again. Points for Williams as well. Alex Albon scored points, so good for him. Pierre Gasly got his first points of the year. Mercedes were there. It was competent. Russell 5th, Hamilton 7th. They didn't do anything too surprising. And then it's kind of just the usual bunch out of the points, the stakes, Ricciardo, Sargent, whoever else. It was a pretty mediocre race. I love Monaco. I love the history of Monaco. Maybe it is time to say goodbye to the Grand Prix at Monaco. But as long as we have some form of racing there, it won't be gone for long. Honestly, it's an incredible track. It's up there with Macau. Honestly, the Macau Grand Prix, it's another track where it's insanely difficult to overtake. But the racing there is just so compelling that it's, honestly, if you don't watch the Macau Grand Prix, I don't know how to help you. Because it's usually free on everything, and the racing at Macau is usually amazing. And you know what? Monaco is Monaco. I love it. I'm happy it exists. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Do you think the Monaco Grand Prix has a future? I'm sure we discussed this last year. What did you think of the race? Charles Leclerc's title hopes? Everything, anything you want to discuss, leave in the comments below. Make sure you subscribe to the channel. Thank you very much for watching, and have a good one. And enjoy the Indy 500 as well.